Hi, it's Sue Greenwald here with Awakened Stories. I'm here today with Deanna Carr with the Mystical Moonlight. Hey, Deanna, how are you?
I'm good today. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Today's surprise topic is William Shakespeare, and you're probably going to ruin it for me because I used to love his plays, and I actually have a book of the complete works of Shakespeare, and I actually would read it from time to time, and I'm going to be sad, but okay. He was born in mid the 1500s, 1564. And Shakespeare's primary legacy consists of writing 38 plays. He introduced about 1,700 words that we use even now. All right, so he popularized these new words that he made up.
Mhm.
He supposedly built the Globe Theatre in London, and it was a massive circular playhouse. And, again, was a screenwriter, playwright, and a shareholder of this circular Globe Theatre. And his group became known as the King's Men. And he supposedly was very wealthy. Okay, is this true? This little summary.
Uh, most of it, yes.
What? Okay, so
Well,
here.
the beginning of it, yeah, and that's how he started off. Yeah.
Okay, so there's been a lot of controversy over Shakespeare, whether he literally wrote the plays or if someone else did and he stole their work, or if he had a different identity, et cetera, et cetera. So that's really why we're doing the video, right? So the
Mhm.
argument is that he was from a small town, right? He was uneducated and he couldn't possibly have known so much about like the stuff he wrote about in his plays, court life and how it worked and the language and, foreign lands. So did he write these plays himself or did he steal the work?
You wrote them.
He did.
Yeah. You seem so surprised.
I am, because I figured the reason we were doing this is you were going to tell me no and all this bad stuff. So he actually wrote the plays.
Yes. But
What?
here's where the interesting part is because this isn't like the other stories we've been telling.
Yeah.
Um, Yes, he was from more of a impoverished area.
Oh,
So, like they said, how could he come up with these words? How could he come up with this educated understanding of something that he was not brought up in?
yeah. Yeah.
That's a great question because he's advanced, you
Oh.
know, advanced in multiple ways. He would be one that we would consider more of a time traveler. He is one that has a deep connection with understanding and just picking up. He is one that you would consider has, um, I don't know if you want to call it telepathic, but he just understands words. Like he knows what you're saying, even if you don't know what you're saying. Like, have you ever had that? Like, I know with Alan, like, I'll be like, you know what I'm talking about? And he knows exactly what I'm talking about, even though I didn't really say anything.
Yeah, is that telepathic connection. Okay.
Yes. So he is that. So he was a higher energy, he was a higher vibration, even though he came from more of the crumbles. Um, he did write those. Now there are some bits and pieces later on down the road that get a little mucky, but he was educated for not being educated. And there are plenty of people nowadays still the same
Yeah,
way.
yeah, no
The
question.
reason he was so popular is because he created these plays that we still, you know, I don't want to just say monetize, but we still hone in. They still teach it in school. They still have plays in the schools for that. So it is something that is not going to go away. I mean, this was what you said, born in 1550. I
Yeah,
mean, that was a while ago,
yeah.
and we're still talking about him, which is, crazy in itself. So, yeah, in the beginning there was no stealing or anything like that. When we get into more of the stealing part is later on in the story.
Oh, okay. So he literally wrote the plays. Now you said the words time traveler there.
Hmm.
Okay, so where was he? Like, what time, I don't know, range was he from? Like, where was he from? That kind of stuff.
He was from that time frame,
Yeah.
but like I said, he had a deeper understanding and connection
Okay.
that, especially in that time frame, they didn't understand. So he was able. We're getting into a very complex situation right now. Time traveling isn't always just linear. When we talk about time travel, we think we're walking through a portal, we're going into different time, we're going to go into the energy, we're going to be in that space and time. Yes, that is one type of time travel, but there are other types of time travel where you don't even have to leave your time frame to get to. And when I'm talking about this is mentally, you can go into a very high-end meditative state where you can interrupt other time frames, understand information, and bring it back without actually entering in to their time frame and without leaving your time frame.
So you mean
Now,
like,
a lot of us,
go ahead.
what?
I'm so sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead.
A lot of us actually kind of do this now, but we second guess ourselves. We don't trust ourselves, and we don't think that it actually happened, but we actually went into a different time frame. The only difference is he was able to understand it and bring it into what he was writing about.
Wow. Okay. Totally not what I expected. Okay.
Mhm.
All right. All my last 20 years, I suspected that he was Francis Bacon, right? And that Francis Bacon had written the plays. That's what everyone says. Although there was another dude that, is a highly likely candidate, Christopher Marlowe, okay? And he
Mhm.
was also a playwright in that time, and he died an early death. So it seemed like, well, maybe Shakespeare had taken his work there, you know?
Mm-mm.
Wow.
Now, but okay, so the question, how do you know they didn't take his work? How do you know they didn't like there are there's over like it gets complex. It's a very complex situation. Because you're incorporating a time lapse. Um for him, when he started getting dirty per se, it is when he started getting onto the Queen's list.
Okay.
When he started making plays that were being very well known, high-end people go to plays. Even nowadays, plays aren't really seen by the everyday Joes. People that have the extra time and money are the ones that go see them. Um, it's just kind of how society's been brought up, I guess. I mean, I know we've seen a few plays, but like that's usually what happens. I don't know.
Right.
Um, but in that time it was very cut, only high-end people were going. There was no middle class, it was high-end people. So the Queen was definitely on the list to go see his stuff. Um, and that's when things started getting interesting because now he has an audience. Now he has people watching. Now he has to keep up, right? Um, and that's when it gets a little bit more edgy for him. He doesn't know how to keep up. Now, he's bringing in this information. He's creating these amazing plays off of things that he's seen from different time frames. But now, how does he keep up with this high-end energy? How does he come up with these themes? Um, I don't want to say it was stealing. It's more like he was trying to see what other playwriters were doing. I don't see him actually taking somebody's notes, taking somebody's play. I think he was trying to see how people were actually structuring it. Um, but what he was actually writing about was futuristic time frames and bringing it into his time frame. Does that
Okay.
make sense?
Yes. Yeah. Interesting. I mean,
Hmm.
because look at, you're right, 500 years later, we're still reading his work, right? We consider that classic, and we have the little footnotes to figure out what the language means and all that, but it is still very, the comedies are funny, the tragedies are sad. I mean, it's very intense work. and very
Yeah.
good, I think. But yeah, okay. So now there's also a theory that he might have been a spy. Is there any truth to that?
Okay, so this is where we get into that complex. We said he just got onto the Queen's list, the know-how.
Yeah.
Now, if you think any type of royal person is clean, you are dead wrong.
Mm-mm.
Um, they have people that work for them. They have people that, do all the dirty work so they can keep their name fresh and clean. So in this time frame, he was, I want to say like hiding stuff for the queen. Um, they would do a lot of shady stuff, and they had to have fronts. They had to have places to put stuff. They had to have ways to hide people. They had to have ways to hide money, jewels, gems, whatever it needs to be. Like I said, they're very shady. You just don't know about it. So they used some of his plays as fronts for the dirty work. And that's when he got into this like spy-like mentality because he didn't actually want to be part of it,
Yeah.
but he knew that if he was going to keep up, being famous, being,
Relevant.
having pretty much, he needed to do this. And there really wasn't an option, especially when you bring in a queen. It's you do it or you don't do it. And when you don't do it, you're dead.
Wow. Okay. So he didn't steal the scripts, but he did look over at someone else's desk.
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Because so think of it like this way. When you're writing a research paper and you have no idea how to write a format, you're going to look at somebody's work to see what the heck is a research paper, right? So he had his own style, but once he started getting into like the big boy group of plays, that's when he's like, I don't really know what I'm doing. Maybe I should say. So yeah, he did look over, see how they were doing their plays and see how he could incorporate it. So it wasn't copy and pasting, it was more of a format issue.
Okay.
Um, and yeah, he probably, I mean, everybody does, even nowadays people do that. They'll see inspiration and they'll use that in their stuff. So some of it was inspiration, but it wasn't copy paste, if that makes sense.
Interesting. Okay. So now when you say that, the queen came to the play, all right, and they were hiding jewels, money, or whatever, like how did that work? They would hand it off at the plays or whatever. Like how was he involved?
Okay, so they would hand most of it off in the plays. You have to think if you have so much stuff you're moving, it has to be stored beforehand. You can't be bringing it in while the show's going on. You're trading it off while the show's going on. So they had to overlap. So they would use, certain areas. And because he was like the director, he had access more than others. So he had to become part of it.
Oh, so let's just say, okay, in the back room of his stage, there was a storeroom and they would stick
Mhm.
like a treasure chest or whatever in there, like the jewels or
Mhm.
whatever in there, and he knew about it, kind of thing.
Yes. Yeah.
Mm. And he got a cut, of course.
Yeah.
Okay.
But like I said, he also didn't have a choice.
Yeah. So he wasn't really a bad guy. He did some things that weren't awesome.
They would be considered shady. They weren't
Yeah.
nasty.
I mean, how many people today would not do that? Like, you know what I mean? Like most everybody would take that deal, you know?
Yeah, like, oh, I gotta just do my own thing and I can get
Yeah.
paid. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, most
Yeah.
people
Yeah.
would do it. Yeah.
Okay.
Um, and yeah, so like I said, it wasn't full on like spy. Like if he found information, because you got to think too, in this time frame, people didn't have text messages. People didn't have, you know, letters weren't like a huge thing. They didn't have mail and all that. So when they got together, that's when they would have conversation. So he ended up being that spy by hearing things and then he would pass it on. So that is what they would consider a spy. Like he would pass it forward.
Ah,
Um, but he was not like, what is it, like ninja style changing outfits? Like what, like that's what I think when I hear spy, like
Yeah, yeah.
literally, like if I think spy, they just change out of their clothes and they hide and all that stuff. But yeah, he would hear a lot of conversation. He'd hear a lot of things that you wouldn't think you'd hear in a play.
Yeah.
And that's when he'd post on.
Yeah, probably a lot of wealthy people came to the plays and, people came
Hmm.
from other countries. And so he might overhear stuff. So he'd kind of collect that information and pass it to the right people.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's the spy component. But he wasn't like out
Yeah.
there like Bond, or whatever, and,
Yeah, he
actively.
was not James Bond
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
sure.
Okay. Okay. Now a couple other there's a lot of conspiracies around him. One is that no one knows what he really looked like. We see the guy kind of partially bald with the big ruffled collar around his outfit, and um,
Mhm.
after I looked around at some of this conspiracy stuff, like nobody really knows what he looked like, and
Yeah.
so so
You
anyway.
also got to think it's 1500s. They don't really have cameras.
Yes, I know. I know. And when I saw that he died wealthy, I was like, did he? In my head, like, did he? But you said he was wealthy. Okay.
He was wealthy. He wasn't the richest.
Yeah.
But you also have to think the time frame too. Wealthy was not our wealthy.
Yeah.
So yes, he was wealthy. He was well off, but he would like in our day and age, he'd be like a normal person.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. All right. Now, another conspiracy that I saw is that they did that ground penetrating radiator radar of his grave, and they found that the skull was missing in his grave. And I don't know if that's true or not. So is he buried in the grave he's supposed to be?
No,
He's not. Okay.
no,
Okay. Any story there?
he's not dead.
Okay. I knew there was going to be something, but I didn't expect that. So, when you say he's not dead, is he in the same body that he was in the 1500s?
No, it's been elevated.
Like an ascended master kind of a situation, or?
That's what I'm getting, yes.
Okay. Is he walking around on planet Earth right now?
Yes.
Wow.
That's what I'm getting. And they're very direct answers.
Okay, so then let's walk into the next conspiracy. His wife was someone called Anne Hathaway, right? And I've seen video clips. I
I've
haven't.
heard this conspiracy. Yeah.
What's that?
I've heard this
Yeah,
conspiracy.
yeah. Where we've got an actress named Anne Hathaway, and there's all these coincidences about their lives or like similarities. Would they happen to be the same person?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Is Anne Hathaway what we'd call good or bad then?
Is Anne Hathaway good? Is Anne Hathaway bad? Mm.
Because the fact that she's in Hollywood and then has been in existence several hundred years is questionable.
Oh yeah, it's definitely questionable. But I'll be honest, I'm getting a mixed answer with that one.
Okay.
Is Anne Hathaway good? Yes. Is Anne Hathaway bad? Yes. Was Anne Hathaway good in the beginning of her life? Yes. Is Anne Hathaway doing bad stuff now? Yes.
I,
And
I,
good
I just
now.
remembered I also
Yeah.
I saw a video with the actress Anne Hathaway where they found she had moved to a new house and they
Hmm.
found the remains of X number of people in that house, like corpses or whatever. So I assume that she was vampire-ish or hybrid reptilian. I assume that.
Yeah. So I'm gonna like for is she good? I'm getting in the beginning of her life. Is she bad now? Yes. So at some point there was a transition.
So she was Shakespeare's wife.
Yes.
Oh my God.
Like
Wow. Okay, now he's still around. Does he have a different name?
I'm getting now.
Okay, is he here in Hollywood with Anne Hathaway in some fashion?
Yes.
Okay. So did he go from a good guy way back when to now what we'd call a bad guy?
Yes.
Okay, I knew you were going to ruin it for me. Okay,
Okay, so then at some point there was a transition because what they're showing was during his career, he was just doing some base stuff. So there must have been something that transitioned it. Um, and I don't think he was the main idea for the person, like for what happened. I think it was her. And when I ask, are they human still? The answer is no.
vampire?
Yes.
Okay. Wow. Okay, all right, so basically the video I saw could be spot on then.
Yeah.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah, because I've seen a couple videos about her recently, and I just put it, eh, everybody in Hollywood's corrupt in some way. I put it in the
Oh
back of my mind. And but I really wanted to focus on him. And so you said that he was still here and that he was elevated in some way.
yeah. Yeah.
Okay. All
So
right.
that would make sense. And then being that he's 500 years old, and if he's a vampire, he would be elevated in the vampire like
Hierarchy. Yeah.
hierarchy. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, one other part of the conspiracy was that there was a 7-year gap in his writings. Okay, so he was writing the plays and then he either disappeared or there's no records of his whereabouts. He wasn't
Mhm.
producing anything during those 7 years. So maybe that's part of the time he did
When it
write.
happens. Yeah.
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 And
'Cause
especially,
it's hard. What people don't realize when they switch to vampires, it's very hard to go back to a normal life.
yeah, yeah. So, and also think of it this way, if he was hanging with the royalty at that point,
Hmm.
all of those guys are bad guys too.
Oh yeah.
So it's more easy to be influenced than or either forced or influenced.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Any other questions I need to ask? I mean, this is a lot, right?
I don't know.
Yeah. So there were some other people when you look up like conspiracy theories, like I said, I expected you to tell me that he was, Francis Bacon wrote the work, or this other guy, Christopher Marlowe, wrote the work. So
Hmm.
Christopher Marlowe supposedly was a playwright, way popular and even more talented than Shakespeare was. And he died in a tavern brawl when he was like 27 or 29. And they were
Hmm.
saying basically Shakespeare probably took his stuff. And I was like, well,
Yeah.
okay, maybe that's true, but maybe there's more to that story than we know, right?
Well, there's always more. Like the only it's very complex, let's say. When you're talking about every angle we just discussed
Yeah.
and adding in time warps and adding in, being alive after 500 years, there's a lot of stuff to unravel. Um, but yeah, with him in that in the beginning, like I said, I'm getting that they were good.
Okay. Okay.
So there was a shift, and usually when a shift like that happens, there's only a few reasons why. Usually it's money, choice, or you're trying to save something.
Okay. So was this their first lifetime, the 1500s? Was that their first lifetime, him and his wife?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. So I guess I get a better way to say that might be original lifetime.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. All right. Well, okay. I'm going to just leave it here. You've kind of blown my mind a little bit because it wasn't the way I expected, but I knew there was something because we were told
Yeah.
to do it, right? So I guess I'll say to the viewer, please let us know your questions. We would love to answer them in a future video.
Yep. Put the comments below.
Yep. Thank you so much, Deanna. I really appreciate your trouble.
Of course.
All
Bye.
right. Bye-bye.